What's going on YouTube? My name is Yags, and with the Modern Warfare 2 betas now behind us, the time has come to meticulously dissect everything Infinity Ward put in front of us. You see, we gamers have high expectations for what we want out of our favorite games these days. We don't want to see the same low-effort BS, we want innovation. We want to shoot Darth Vader with a machine gun and then slurp potion juice. Honestly, this no build mode is pretty fun. Fortnite is kind of enjoyable again. But seriously, the COD community went into this beta with high hopes, and whether or not Infinity Ward pulled it off is up for debate. A lot of people really loved it, but some felt that there was enough holding it back to make the experience unenjoyable overall. I'm in that first group. I liked what I saw, and while I think MW2 definitely has some problems worth mentioning, they're not systemic issues that are going to ruin this game come release. They're fixable little tweaks that can be easily sorted out. And even if not much changes in terms of the gameplay mechanics, I still think this is going to be one of the best Call of Duty games we've seen in the last decade. I'm going to start off with the positives, and I think the most important thing to mention first are the maps. MW2's map design is awesome and one of the best parts of the game for me. I love the rushing routes and overall layouts, especially Las Almas and Farm 18. There's been a lot of complaints about camping again, just like in MW 2019, but I don't think that has as much to do with the map design itself and more to do with the other design choices like the minimap change and Footstep audio, both of which I'll touch on in a minute. MW2's maps have their camping spots, but they also allow for some fun movement plays and a lot of vertical and horizontal rushing routes. They vary in size, but none of them feel too cramped or too wide open. They're a good mix, and they see you getting into gunfights at a bunch of different distances. They're nothing revolutionary, but they complement the gameplay well, and I like the way they flow. I think once the full game comes out and we eventually get access to some legacy maps like Terminal, High Rise, and Rust, fans from every era of Call of Duty are ultimately going to love the map selection this game has on offer. In terms of the gameplay, we can divide that up into a few different key elements. Movement has seen some changes this time around, the two biggest being that they took out slide canceling and added in the Dolphin dive. And thank the almighty devs at Infinity Ward for both of these, man. Slide canceling is bullshit. I'm not trashing anyone who does it. It's been in Warzone and Modern Warfare for a reason, and those who do it are just taking advantage of a mechanic that the developers have decided to leave in the game. I don't blame anyone for doing it and dominating with it if the developers aren't going to patch it out. At this point, it's just a part of the meta, I guess, but that doesn't mean that it's a good gameplay mechanic, and I know I speak for a lot of us when I say that I'm glad it's gone. It essentially breaks the movement system entirely and makes gunfights less tactical than I think Infinity Ward wants them to be, hence why they removed it. I like the fact that things were a little bit slower in the beta. You still have your sprinting and sliding and jump shotting and all that, but it feels more balanced here. MW 2019 and Warzone just got ridiculous with people flying around like fucking Quicksilver and Days of Future Past. Everything feels more grounded now. And the addition of the Dolphin dive doesn't change that. It was awesome to see this classic mechanic come back and actually be useful and intuitive. It's easy to differentiate between sliding and diving on the fly, and it's a great addition to the COD movement set that I hope sticks around in future games. The gunplay is really solid, pretty much on par with MW 2019. Most of the weapons are really satisfying to use, and I'm excited to be able to use all the classics that have been heavily rumored, like the Intervention and the ACR. It sucks that you couldn't really use the off-meta guns, and most players were funneled into using one of 3 weapons in every single match, but that's another thing that we'll touch on in a minute. The actual guns themselves, the way they look and sound and feel as you fire them, it's all great. They had some weird issues in the beta with muzzle flash and recoil, but I'm sure that'll be worked on before launch day. I really liked a lot of the quality of life stuff and game mode additions too. I was watching the Actman's video on MW2, and he pointed out how it seems like Activision is trying to draw in players from every type of shooter. A third-person mode for Fortnite fans, tactical gameplay for Siege fans, a Conquest type mode for Battlefield fans, all 12 of them that are left that COD is trying to rein in. Call of Duty has been ripping off shooter mechanics like wall running and super abilities for the better part of a decade now. But it seems like rather than just straight up copying other games and turning COD into something it's not, they built a good foundation for a Call of Duty game and added whatever they could around that. At its core, MW2 feels like COD, and separate game modes act to supplement the experience rather than change the identity of the franchise. And the little stuff like being able to pick between score streaks and kill streaks, and having an FOV slider on console, they're meaningful additions that a lot of people are going to appreciate. So that's what I liked, but what about what I didn't like? Well, for one, the new progression system in terms of leveling up your guns is really convoluted. I like the idea of only having to unlock attachments once and cutting down on the grinding, but the leveling menus are so confusing. I don't think the system itself needs to change, they just need to make some tweaks to the menus to make everything more clear. Like, what is a receiver? Is it just changing your gun? Did they just invent a fake mechanic for picking a gun? Because if so, that's such a 343 thing to do. I can just imagine it now. What's up, guys? We're adding the ability to spawn in with your pistol out instead of the AR. It's called a Spartan Switchy, and you can find it in the shop for 6 million Spartan coins. Work continues on fixing the game. The UI in general is a mess, and while I hope this gets completely revamped before launch, I highly doubt it. Apparently they hired people from Hulu to design the UI and want it to be more like TV streaming apps and mobile games and stuff. That sucks, because what we got was this ugly-ass side-scrolling thing. It just doesn't work. And speaking of messy, the betas had their fair share of technical issues. We're still about a month out from launch, and it wasn't crippling, but there were some weird glitches and technical problems that popped up here and there. Something to keep an eye on, but I don't think it'll be too big of a problem at release. What we know for a fact will be in the game at launch and all throughout its lifespan is skill-based matchmaking. To be honest, it wasn't super noticeable to me, but the community as a whole has been really vocal about SBMM, and the discussion around it has kind of reignited. My stance hasn't changed since I covered the topic in a video about Halo Infinite a couple months back. I don't think it's good for casual modes in any shooter, and that includes MW2. And we could do a deep dive into every talking point and really break down how SBMM can ruin games, but that's for another video. In this case, I just want to talk about two main issues that it presents in Call of Duty games that aren't, I just want to play bad people so I can drop high kill streaks and kick ass. That's the common retort used against opponents of SBMM like me, and that's not the argument being made here. In MW2 specifically, I can point out at least two concrete ways that it hurts the game design. The first being that it greatly restricts your ability to use the entire sandbox the game offers. In MW2, the M4, MP5, and Hurricane were the best weapons in the beta, plus the sniper if you're a good quickscoper, I guess. Since the game is working so hard to match you with players at your exact skill level, good players aren't going to be able to use any other weapon in the game outside of those four without getting stomped on. Because most people you're going to match with at the high levels of SBMM are going to be running all the best meta loadouts in the game. Want to level up some other guns to unlock attachments using the new leveling system? Have fun going .50 KD. Sick of using the same four guns? Too bad. It's like that burger commercial from Parks and Rec.
The Paunch Burger Dinner for Breakfast burger combo. It tastes amazing. What's in it? Who cares? How many calories? Shut up. It's awesome. Put it in your body or you're a nerd.
And in addition to that, the game reevaluates you after every single match and makes changes to your opponents based on your performance. Ever wonder why they want the post-game lobbies to disband so badly after every game? It's because in the background, the game is busy calculating that you just dropped a 3.0 with a chopper gunner against these kids, and you're about to get fisted by FaZe Clan next game. Sorry man, I know you were having fun talking shit, but no good game goes unpunished, so... Yeah, in my opinion, that's far too reactive of a system. I wouldn't mind SBMM as much if it wasn't so strict, but as it stands now, it feels like you're penalized for having a good game. They're not going to get rid of it, and they don't have to. I just hope they tone it back a little bit. On top of what I did and didn't like, there's a couple things I'm more divided on. The biggest of which are the minimap and the footstep audio. Enemies don't show up on the minimap when firing their weapons. You'll only see those red dots if your team has a UAV in the air. Couple that with the footstep audio being absolutely through the roof, and you've got yourself a camp-heavy Call of Duty game. With footsteps being so loud and no way for players to see each other on the minimap, you're incentivized to play as slowly as possible, waiting until you hear someone and using those mechanics to your advantage. Pretty much everyone universally agrees that footstep audio is too loud, so much that they already nerfed it for the second beta weekend. They're still really loud, but I think that's an easy fix that they'll eventually balance accordingly. The minimap is a different story, and while a lot of people hate the change and want to see it go back to normal, I kinda like it. I think it changes it up a little, and like I said earlier, I like the slower and more tactical feel of this game. It still felt like COD, but not quite as breakneck as MW 2019 can feel. I wouldn't necessarily hate it if they changed it back, and I feel like they might cave, but I hope they keep it in for at least the first month or so. If the player count numbers are dropping and people still won't get off their ass, I guess they can do what they have to do, but they should just let the entire player base experience the change on all the maps and see how it plays out. And I kind of feel the same way about the new perk system. Instead of picking one perk from 3 different trees, you pick 4 perks that you unlock over the course of the match. It's an interesting new approach here, and while I sometimes miss the old system, I like that they're switching it up here. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day with this game, man. You gotta respect the balls on Infinity Ward to make these fundamental changes to the COD formula. There's still so many people out there that can't stand how little COD changes from year to year, and I think the team at IW set off to dispel that notion. Huge changes to the perk system and minimap have changed the way Call of Duty will be played this year, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. After all, we should expect new experiences from a new product we're buying. And I'm glad this isn't another scenario of all of us sitting around saying, oh well, looks like COD is going to be copy and pasted again this year, excited to get bored in a few months and go back to Warzone. And what I think will end up happening is a classic playlist with a traditional minimap and much lower footstep audio. The perk system is baked into the class customization, so I'm not sure if that will ever change, but a classic minimap and lower footstep audio could be implemented overnight. And I think a playlist that caters to fans of the traditional COD elements is a good idea. It would be an easy way to appease both old and new fans, and with this game being the only mainline Call of Duty until 2024, they're going to need to make sure player retention rates are high. And I'm on my hands and knees begging you, Infinity Ward, to not use that as an excuse to introduce bullshit monetization. So, obviously everything in this video is subjective, they're my opinions, except for Dolphin diving. Dolphin diving is objectively fucking badass, and if you disagree, you're wrong. But let me know what you think of MW2 in the comments. Did you love it and unlock everything in the beta? Did you cancel your pre-order and proclaim once and for all that Treyarch is the king of COD? I will never know what you're thinking unless you head down there and spill your guts. I want 5-paragraph essays. Why MW2 is ruining the Call of Duty franchise. Put that shit in MLA format, 12-point font, fucking Times New Roman, bitch. And while you're at it, drop a like for me and hit that subscribe button on your way out. As always, thanks for watching. This is Yags, signing off.